Happy Wednesday night, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Fly Like an Eagle podcast. I'm Kyle. That's Scott. We're here every single week bringing you nonstop Eagles action, previewing the games every single week. This week, we got the Eagles versus Giants. Before we get into it, though, we're going to talk about the disastrous win against the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. Listen, we won the game, but at the end of the day, I talked to you guys last week. If we won the game, yay. If we lost the game, it would have been the worst reaction probably of all time. That's why I felt the need to not make a post game last week with Scotty, because there was really no need, because going into the game, I didn't really care about the game. So them basically not showing up but still winning, it's kind of what I expected. But this week, let me tell you something. If they have a performance like they did against the Browns this week, it's a problem. It's a fucking problem, because the Giants are going to want to play their asses off, especially with Saquon Barkley coming back. And we got to be ready to play. But without further ado, what's up, Scott?
What's going on, Kyle? Let's just jump right into it. Yeah, this was the definition of a bad win, in my opinion. People have been saying it all week. To be honest, when we went 3-and-out on our first drive, starting with the football, I was already taken out of the game. You know, Jalen Hurts started 0 for 5 passing the football, and it was just boring. Again, I think I've said it a couple times this year. This team, besides Saquon and obviously A.J. Brown, now having him back, that's exciting and worth watching. Of course, the defense did a couple good things this week, but overall, like when you start, 3-and-out, it's a stench on the offense and ultimately the entire team. Now, like we said, that they got the win. But in your opening, you said that you kind of expected them to win this way. I mean, I thought it would definitely – I think we predicted like 30-17, 30-10. So were you not surprised on the final result? Or
All right, so at the back of my mind, I was thinking to myself, this team really hasn't looked good in the weeks prior. But with A.J. Brown coming back, I thought we were really going to open up the offense and look more like we did against Green Bay. That didn't happen. It looked like the Browns came to play more than I expected they would, and they really wanted to shut up everyone around the league, and the defense actually looked pretty good on their part. I'm not going to take anything away from them. But at the end of the day, I don't know what it is. And after the game, Nick Sirianni got into it with some fans, and he was basically saying, I'm going to run Saquon Barkley. Now, the way I took that is, yeah, he's not really running them the way we want him to run him. But is that because they want to preserve him since it's a long season and they want to use him when needed? I'm trying to figure this out, because if that's not the case, I'm like my mind's in a pretzel, because last year they did the same thing with DeAndre Swift. They used Gainwell more than they possibly should have. But I just feel like Saquon Barkley should be the only back touching the ball, maybe 75 to 80% of the time. And I see Gainwell a lot more than I should, or I see Saquon Barkley not doing as much as I think he should be doing in this offense. So it's very weird to start the season, but at the end of the day, it still is early. We're 3-2. We have a long way to go. We really need to step up in MetLife Stadium and show the Giants that they're still our little brother. And that's just how I see it.
Kyle, this team doesn't like to run the ball, and we thought that was, a little bit changing the way that Saquon started the season.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we know this organization is like a little bit like petty, so on and so forth. Do you think that they were like, all right, all this talk about Jalen Hurts, it's a Jalen Hurts game to like prove the fan base and the media right, wrong, whatever have you? Or do you think that, again, they're trying to like outsmart themselves? Because Cleveland did not have a good run defense. Yes, they have Myles Garrett. But yeah, for Saquon standards, they shut him down. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that it seems to me like every single week is a Jalen Hurts prove it game. Like he's proven something wrong to somebody. And honestly, I'm over it if that's the case. I did like what he said after the post game. He basically said that, they forgot to ask him about the defense and the fact that the defense played their asses off to keep him in that game. And that's what I like a leader like the quarterback to say on the Philadelphia Eagles. That was phenomenal. That was a great response at the end of that question. But at the end of the day, listen, Was the play to A.J. Brown the right play at the end of that game? No, absolutely not. And honestly, if they incompleted that pass, Cleveland could have went down the field and scored on us.
Well,
So
I thought it was 2nd and 11. But I do agree that
it doesn't really matter what it was, to be honest with you, because Cleveland still had one timeout. And, if they incompleted that, it would have been 3rd and 11. They would have used the timeout. And we saw in the Falcons game, they went down the field on us in, 36 seconds? So it's like –
it's not good situational decisions.
No, it's horrible situational football. It's exactly what we did against the Falcons when Saquon Barkley dropped that pass. It was the same exact thing. But A.J. Brown is a stud, and he doesn't drop anything, so it helped us win the game. And it made Nick look genius. But at the end of the day, he's got to be better at situational football. This team's got to come together more, and they just got to play better.
Now, I know that obviously we know, I doubt Jalen changed the play at the line of scrimmage. Do you think that was Kellen Moore or Nick Sirianni?
I'm at this point, I'm thinking everything is a little bit of Nick. I just think that Kellen Moore has a different philosophy when it comes to the game of football, and it's not looking like it did in LA, and it's not looking like I did it in Dallas. And we have more talent on this team than either one of those teams. And you could debate a wall on that one. I don't really care. That's just what I'm saying. And I honestly think that Kellen Moore is calling maybe 30% of the game.
Oh, why were we sold? We were sold a bag of goods then that, it was Kellen Moore and Nick was taking a back seat? Or is it again, I could see it, Nick is so fucking emotional that he's listening to what everyone's saying that he does. What the hell do you even do here? So now he wants to take back over the offense. I mean, at this point, that makes sense, right?
Yeah. No, I think he wants to make it his offense and defense. I don't think he wants any coordinator to take anything from him. I think he wants to be the guy because he's egotistical. And listen, if you're winning, I'm for it. But if you're losing, you're going to hear it from him.
Exactly. Just like 2022, he was so loved, and we all loved all the bullshit that he would pull. But yeah, let's just get into that. It was national news on Monday. Him yelling at home fans after the A.J. Brown catch or after they won, whatever, about what was it? You're not talking now, or let me hear you now after beating the Browns 20-16. Mm-hmm. Is that just one of the stupidest things you've ever seen, or what were your thoughts, initial reaction?
I mean, I don't think anything is Kellen Moore right now. And if it is, well, I was going to Nick's chat, and I kind of blocked out what you said for a second because I was just so in between this comment, what you were saying. But I'll go with Nick first. I think Moore had very little to do with those 2 touchdown plays. It's not what I saw when we hired him. I actually looked at film and YouTube clips of Kellen Moore coaching the last 2 teams he was on, and this offensive scheme is not his. So honestly, I think he's calling very little of the offense right now. Maybe, like I said, maybe 30%. So what were you saying, Scotty? I'm sorry.
Just about Nick's comments after the game. Was that one of the most stupidest things you've ever done? Saying to the fans, "Look at me now. Why can't hear you now?" After beating the Browns 20-16.
No, I don't think it's stupid. I just think that everything's an overreaction in Philly. I think Nick was very.
Yeah, but it was like I said, the national media was talking.
I don't care. I really don't care what any of the media says. They all try to drive clickbait views. That's all they do. And honestly, this is why podcasts are taking over, because we tell you what should be said, not the obvious low-hanging fruit comment that should be said, And Nick Sirianni was very emotional after weeks and weeks and weeks of people saying he sucks, especially when he brought us to the Super Bowl just a year and a half ago. And I think he's just over it. I think he's over it, and I'm okay with what he said. As long as we win and as long as he does his job, I'm okay with it. And here's another thing, guys. Why are people making fun of the fact that the guy shaved his head? Do you guys not realize that it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month and Cancer Awareness Month in total? Maybe you got to stop and think that maybe he had a family or relative that dealt with cancer, just like my buddy is dealing with cancer with his mom right now. So you might want to stop and take a minute and look around the room and realize where you're at, because October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and that's a big deal. So I think that's why he did that. If not, who cares? You shouldn't judge regardless, but I think that's the reason, and you guys should be ashamed of yourselves.
Yeah, Kyle, you told me that on Monday when I asked you about it, because that wasn't the first thought that came to my mind, but that's a great point. Also, WIP, people were like, the hosts were literally saying like, oh, he shaved his head like Britney Spears, like he's just going like,
It's fucked up.
Like, he's just going crazy, and and he doesn't have to explain himself. I would be interested to see if, I'm sure reporters asked him probably one day last week. I don't know. So that's maybe like bad education on them, on the radio host, not to know that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall with him, again, like you said, if we're winning, it changes things. But again, this, like we said in the beginning of the show, this was the definition of a bad loss. And there's a fine line in Philly. We don't want our head coach acting like a fan, like just the way, like in his first season when he wore those Beat Dallas t-shirts all week. And we get what you're trying to do and be relatable. And, you think this fan base would like that camaraderie and like going back and forth, which is fine if we beat the 49ers or we beat the Lions or whoever, or the Chiefs. But you're literally playing. I didn't check the power rankings yet this week, but like the Browns have to be 32.
Yeah, they're bad. They're really bad.
So that's my really only issue with it. But again, the criticism is justified because, we're still hanging on to last year. Like you're never going to not hear about last year until you make the playoffs and win in the playoffs. Right. That just is what it is. Or, we go on, the team just starts looking good and we fucking put people away. Now, again, another perfect opponent this week. Let's move on to the Giants, talk a little bit. The Giants have definitely come back down to earth from their little resurgence. But, within the past few weeks, they're still not a good football team. Obviously, Daniel Jones has been not god-awful. He's been somewhat serviceable. But we know that this team has a great track record against the Giants. Nick Sirianni is 5-1, or actually 6-1 against them, I believe.
Yeah, and the last loss was last year when our team fell apart anyway, so it doesn't really count.
Exactly. So of course, fucking Giants are just a dumpster fire. We talked about that all off season, and there's no way that they have confidence going into this game. Just absolutely none. Going back to our players of the week last week, and I do want to touch on the defense and Cooper DeJean, who really, really showed up and showed out. The defense had 5 sacks, and that kid was all over the ball. Like even in just watching brief highlights, he was near the ball, near the receiver, whoever caught the ball. It was like a group tackle. So, and that was really, really surprising for me, for him to his first defensive snaps to play that well. Also, because we saw the week in Tampa with the punt return, that whole debacle and stuff. But no, he's not a fucking punt returner. He's clearly a DB or some type of role on defense, safety, whatever. So that was super, super encouraging. And obviously, Quinyon Mitchell would have got that pick, or CJGJ, right? Were they the ones that collided into each other?
Yes.
So yeah, if that didn't happen, we would have finally got a safety. Well, Reed Blankenship has gotten those INTs, but a cornerback would finally have a pick this season, which, yeah, come on, like that needs to happen. We're into week 7 now, week 6, week 7. But again, you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt because it was the Browns. It's still an NFL game. I think that I would put Deshaun Watson's so bad, so I would put less stock into the defense and what they did besides Cooper DeJean, and I would put more stock into the offense because obviously they were playing Myles Garrett and the Jim Schwartz defense of the Browns.
Right.
Back to the Giants. Like I said, you think the Giants are just, back to being the Giants, and what do you expect from this week?
What does back to being the Giants mean? Does that mean like the historic Giants that win, or the Giants that are back to sucking and we should win?
Yeah, the Giants of the past 12, 14 years.
Yeah, Malik Nabers is going to play this week, but he's going to be on Quinyon Mitchell Island, so I'm not really worried about him. Their running backs, you got Tracy, because I think Singletary's still out. So you got Tracy. He's a rookie. No one really knows who he is. So they don't really have many weapons other than Nabers, and I'm not really worried about that because Quinyon Mitchell's been a beast this whole entire season. So I listen, I'm not going score prediction right now, but it's the Giants. it's the Giants. We're going to see more of the Giants of the last 12 years than anything. And that's just how it is because I said so.
Yeah, we almost forgot one big storyline. Obviously, Saquon Barkley's return to play his old team in New Jersey, New York.
Yep.
I feel like that's not being brought up as much because like Saquon just didn't have a big week last week. And it was also talked about to death, like in the off season and the beginning of this season. Now that it's kind of here, obviously it's still a big game for him personally. And I'm sure that they are going to feed him the ball for a lot of reasons.
Yep.
Do you see a big game from him? And also, let's just pray to God that no one gets hurt on this fucking field again.
I see a lot of run designs, either if it's with him or Jalen Hurts. I think they're going to run the ball a lot this game, especially because, like you said, they don't want to see anyone get hurt and throwing the ball, route running, turning ankles. They want to limit that. So I think you're going to see a lot of straightforward with running and passes out of the backfield. That's just how I see.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we saw A.J. Brown get hurt on that field the last week of the season last year.
Yep.
So let's hopefully that doesn't happen again. Yeah, we do have some comments if you want to go there.
Okay, I'll go there. Jamar 14 Eagles asks, do you think Howie will get the Giants GM fired? I don't know. I think the Giants GM is actually doing a decent job for what he has, what kind of assets he has. But they're still not doing great. They're still 3 to 5 years away from being good.
Well, isn't letting Saquon go, like, isn't that justifiable to be fired or
A
no?
little bit. But, I mean, he did get Malik Neighbors, so, I mean, it really –
do you think he'll be the one drafting the quarterback?
Yes, I do. I think that this year, if Danny Dimes or Danny Pennies, as we like to call him, starts going downhill a little bit, their incentive is to go get a quarterback in the first round. But if Danny Dimes or Pennies, like we like to call him, is mediocre to good, they're going to keep him for one more year. So that's just how I see that.
I would agree. Any other noteworthy comments or any conversation?
Continuous says, Nick got to go. Kellen made old ass Keenan Allen go off last week. Let Kellen
Moore run the offense.
Yeah, but Keenan Allen's on the Bears. I don't really get that.
Well, he wasn't he on the Chargers? I think he's talking about the Chargers last year, right?
Oh, yeah. He's saying let Kellen Moore run the offense. I agree with you 100%. Keenan Allen's awesome, though. He finally got 2 touchdowns against Jacksonville this week, so that's good.
Yeah, I think he's just the injuries are building up, so I would say he's more injured than old. Mm-hmm. But it looked like the Packers game, like that was Kellen Moore because we saw them finally doing motions and just being creative. And the offense hasn't looked explosive since that game.
How do you feel about them not scoring a first quarter touchdown this year?
How about a damn field goal? You mean a point?
Yeah, a point. It's even worse.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I said, I was taken out of the game, the Browns game, when we went 3 and out, and Jalen was 0 for 5, and people are saying, well, I think some of the receivers were open. Honestly, he just didn't go. I think there was an open AJ Brown that he didn't go to, and whatever. Like, it's no excuse to say that the Browns corners made good plays. Like, again, coming off the bye, and you can't fucking get a first down when your first offensive drive, like, just fucking get a first down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that hard. Throw it to, Goddard. Obviously, he got hurt, but he was still in. Saquon, it's concerning. Again, I feel like there's an agenda for what they want to do that week. Obviously, they're trying to play to the matchups, but Saquon couldn't run the ball against one of the worst run defenses. Yep. So it's like, again, I don't know if it's us beating ourselves or, again, we don't touch on this much, but the Eagles organization has a philosophy that they want to do. They want to throw the football on offense, and they really like zone defense and kind of like, not want to say like prevent, but playing off of the ball where the cornerbacks don't line up, close to the receivers pre-snap. And we've seen that with the past few defensive coordinators. And again, remember last year, they weren't successful until they finally fed DeAndre Swift the ball, and then he went off those 2 games.
Yep.
Like, you give the ball to the hot player who's doing well, and fuck who you want to see have a big stat line or who needs to prove themselves this week. Win the game and fucking give the ball to who is going to make the best plays and score points. So, yeah, what do you think of no points in the first quarter? Since I think it's actually, we said this since Julio Jones last year.
I mean, I think it's a joke. You know, at the end of the day, you just have to hope that they do it this week. If not this week, next week. You know, it's a
better be this week. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we can't control it. It's up to coach and it's up to the players. You know, it sucks, but it's a terrible streak.
Especially at home. How do you go 3-and-out at home after a bye week on your first?
Well, drive? I mean, maybe the players are scared of the fans booing them. Who knows? I don't know.
So they're feeling the pressure at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the fans booed Santa Claus, so there's that. Thomas Hetrick says Dexter Lawrence will cause problems for the O-line. Yeah, I mean, the guy's a beast. I'm not taking anything away from Dexter Lawrence. He's an absolute monster, but it's pretty much all they got. So my problem is, now I'm going to rebut off of what you said, Thomas. My problem is, ever since Kelsey retired, it looks like Cam Jurgens is a very mediocre center because he just cannot get with the program when it comes to being the main guy for Jalen Hurts. He looks flustered every game. He looks.
Does he need more time, or you're saying he should be?
He shouldn't need more time. He's Jason Kelsey's understudy. He had 2 to 3 years behind him to learn from Jason Kelsey in practice. You know, I just don't understand what's taking this guy so damn long, especially when Jason Kelsey picked him out himself. You know, and it's a problem because if you put Kelsey in there right now, I don't think we have many problems. So I think it all falls down to Cam Jurgens right now, and it's not being talked about. You know, I see so many balls being over-snapped. I see it being over-snapped.
I think, I don't know if you remember, that did happen with Kelsey too.
Yeah, but not as much.
Even last year.
Not as much, though. It's happening like once a game.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that also can contribute. I mean, not this season, there's no excuse, but previous years, you know, Cam Jurgens probably was the second team center. So he wasn't working with Hurts as much. But yeah, a whole off season, 5 games now because they had the bye. This will be their 6th game. Yeah, he needs to get it together. I think his run blocking has been fine. I don't know if pressure has necessarily been coming up the middle. Besides against Tampa, he was terrible.
Yeah.
But we know they have a stud D tackle. And then obviously Myles Garrett, you know, he was going up against Lane Johnson. And also I think Jordan Mailata, he's also suffering from an injury. Right.
Yeah. He's probably gonna be back in like 2 to 3 weeks by the looks of it.
So who is going to be the new left tackle?
It's gonna be Frederick Johnson.
Fred Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay. And we always thought that Lane Johnson would replace Jason Peters, but you know, obviously that's not happening.
No.
So he's on the right side forever.
Yeah, we don't want another Andre Dillard episode against Seattle.
No.
We don't want that.
So that could be concerning, but I don't think the Giants have the talent. Besides, who's their linebacker that's good? That hasn't been like the best. He should be doing better.
It's not really like coming to me right now.
Let me look up their roster.
I don't watch a lot of Giants football unless they're on Monday Night Football, which seems to be like every week this week.
Yeah, last week against the Bengals, and that game was kind of close throughout, but then of course the Bengals pulled away at the end and won.
Such a shitty game.
What the fuck's his name? I'm looking it up now. Isn't it like Tobin or
Tobin?
Let me look him up.
Yeah, we don't know the Giants linebacker name. Sorry, guys.
Oh, well, they have Brian Burns, of course, back. And
Brian Burns is a monster. He's from Carolina last year.
Is he hurt? Oh, Thibodeau.
Oh, you mean Kayvon Thibodeau?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not a linebacker. He's a defensive lineman.
Why is he not listed on here?
Probably because some guy from the practice squad. They don't have many linebackers like we don't.
Oh, I think he's hurt. but he is an outside linebacker. Yeah, he's on IR, so that sucks for them.
All right, so just run the ball out on the outside. You're good.
I'm looking at their roster now. Oh my god, I forgot they have John Runyon Jr. I don't know if he's starting or not. I think he is a starter. But yeah, none of their wide receivers scare me except for Neighbors, but they still have Darius Slayton, nothing at tight end.
I mean, they have one Dale Robinson, so
true. And that's obviously you just have to pressure Daniel Jones, and then he's just gonna curl up into a ball.
Yep, literally.
So maybe we'll see Tommy DeVito again, but hopefully not Drew Lock, because we know what the hell he did to us last year in Seattle.
Tommy DeVito stinks.
Oh yeah, I can't believe how did he even make the roster again?
I don't know. I mean,
he literally had his 15 minutes of fame, and he's not even that good enough to deserve that. It's weird.
Giants fans were in such misery for years that my cousin, who's a diehard New York Giants fan, his dad got him a Tommy DeVito jersey for Christmas. That's how many misery years they've had.
Yeah, that's the state of the franchise, and somehow I don't even know how this is possible, but he had 8 touchdowns last year. Actually, 9. He had 8 throwing, 1 rushing.
Yeah, he played well against Green Bay, but then they picked him apart on film, and he didn't really do anything after that.
Yeah, I just don't know how you let that, unless they just underestimated. I just don't think he's he's going to be. He has to be out of the league in a year or two.
He's trash. And his agent wears that mafia hat.
I know, and I remember he was living at home eating chicken cutlets. Right.
Yeah.
All right, moving along. Let's get into the NFC East. Obviously, we know that all 3 teams lost.
Yep.
On Sunday, besides us, which I think it's been a while. Of course, this year with Washington being surprisingly good with Jaden Daniels, but that Cowboys loss, that was their worst home loss, I believe, ever. Under Jerry Jones, 47-9.
It's his birthday too.
It was his birthday, Libra. It was just a complete thrashing, embarrassing. And I think the thing that you have to go back to, because I believe Brandon Cooks played, so they had their starters, whoever back. But Dak Prescott was abysmal, and again, he's getting paid the most money ever, quarterback player in the league.
Yep.
And he didn't show up, and it's been a couple times now, and they've made their bed. I don't think that they should have given Dak that money.
But is Detroit that good, or is Dallas that mediocre?
I think Detroit is that good, and Dallas is mediocre average.
All right, so you didn't really answer the question.
I think both are true. I mean, what would you say?
I would say it's more like Detroit's very good. Dallas doesn't, like I said before, Dallas.
Well, they made Dallas look like the Browns.
Yeah, and it's a problem when it comes to us, because if Detroit is very good, like I saw, nobody's going to beat them besides San Fran, and it's going to be a wrap by week 10, which kind of sucks because I want the Eagles to thrive, but they're not showing me anything right now. So it's it kind of sucks because they're on this level, and we're right here. We're right here right now. We're not good, not great, not whatever. We're just mediocre.
Yeah.
And it's it's weird.
How do you think, because we do play Dallas in a few weeks, and we know that we usually split with them, and I think our first game against them is there. So what, just a little bit of a preview, how do you think, is it gonna be a tight football game like it always is? How do you think we match up against Dallas this year?
No, I think this is the 1 year, and I can't believe I'm saying this after the way we've started our season. I think this is the year where we finally sweep them.
Oh, that was actually my off-season prediction.
Yeah, I think we sweep them.
Good to know. So just to add on, I'm sure, did you listen to the Jerry Jones radio interview?
Oh, every day.
So what? I think it was just first of all, he's senile and losing it, and clearly he was facing the heat and he's getting defensive. He's kind of pulled. I mean, his was worse than Sirianni. But this is the fucking owner, not the coach, not the GM, he is the GM, but not a player. And he just came off so immature, disrespectful, threatening to basically fire that radio host, which was just very uncomfortable. And you could say it was tongue in cheek, even though he said afterwards, "I'm not kidding." Very like just terrible choice of words, timing. Like, I mean, you're the one that chooses to go on the show, dude. So what are they supposed to ask you? And I think he was saying, "No, to put like do 50-50 about the positive things that I've done." There's nothing positive for you this season.
Yeah. I mean, that's just at that point, that's just a power trip by Jerry Jones saying he's going to fire the talk show radio host. It's like, this is exactly why talk show radio hosts don't ask the questions that people want them to ask, because you have these asshole billionaires that think they play God and that they could fucking fire anybody they want if they don't like the question they ask them. That's why they don't ask, because people need jobs. Not everyone's a fucking billionaire. And that's why I think Jerry Jones pisses everyone off, because he's just an old asshole that looks like a lizard, and he's stupid. He has shit for brains, and people and this stupid Dallas area keeps putting up with him because of 5 titles back in the 90s, 80s, and 70s. You know, it's garbage, and he's a fucking loser.
Yeah, and like obviously they've had success. Not saying it reminds me of Daniel Snyder, because that was a whole nother situation. But there's such like fake fans where it's like, all right, you just got killed, and say that they somehow beat San Francisco, which they won't. But then they're like kind of like back on the bandwagon. So it's like you're never going to see change unless you have your opinion and you stick to it.
Yep.
And we know that, and literally every season they're riding high at some point and think Super Bowl, like every single fucking year.
Yeah, we all know it's not going to happen.
So like, I know. So why they're like such in fantasy land and denial? Like, again, they never. And again, I thought after that Green Bay game, and I feel like this season they've been more level-headed, even though after the Browns, of course, there was a little bit of a hype train, and now we see what the fucking Browns are. But a lot of fans were finally, I felt like there was a change with their fan base a little bit, but not really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, their fan base, if you look at Mark Holmes here, if you look at him, I
actually am a fan of him now. I just wish he wasn't a Cowboys fan, but he's like,
yeah, he's not delusional. Like he'll do a live stream every day and say how bad the team is and that Dak was not worth the money. And he used to be one of the delusional fans, but then he just watched and got fed up with it, because he's the type of fan that understood what it took to win back in the 90s and all the talent that they have, and they're just slop now. It's just a bunch of talent just mushed together. No team, no anything.
I agree. And Nick just made a good comment. I'm assuming he's talking about the Cowboys. It won't change till the media chills out after they beat a bad team. Yes, but they shouldn't even, again, we know it's the Cowboys, their worth and all the publicity, but they shouldn't even be feeding into that. Now, I know it's their fans, their team media, the owner, whatever, but like, again, it's like the definition of insanity repeating itself, because that happens every single time. Like, the fact that they still let that affect them after hundreds of examples the past 25 years, like, it makes sense why they can't win in the playoffs.
Yep.
So, but yeah, not a good look for Jerry Jones.
I'm cool with watching the yearly Cowboy disaster in the first round of the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, but if you want my honest opinion as an observer, outside observer, as a football fan, their team isn't that hard to fix. Him just being the GM is the reason why they don't win. So that's just basically it.
Yeah, especially now this team isn't that talented, but the previous years when they had more talent, I would completely agree. But their defense, they let a lot of their depth pieces go. But of course, they still have Micah Parsons, who at this point is overrated a little bit, in my opinion.
My one friend who's a diehard Dallas fan who knows that the team is shit, he said that he can't wait for Jerry Jones to die. Like, that's how pissed off he is.
Yeah, I mean, that's graphic, but like at this point, nothing will actually change until that happens, where he like goes into a home, or I don't know, like fucking gets dementia like Joe Biden and can't speak anymore. But yeah, so that's the Cowboys. Same old, not even same old. They're worse. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they miss the playoffs, because they've had murderers row, 49ers, Falcons, us, Bengals still. So they got a heart, and of course playing Washington now that Washington's competitive. Let's move on to Washington. We're going to get into my picks later, but I did pick them to lose to the Ravens. They came back down to reality, but of course, Jaden Daniels still played well. So them losing to the Ravens, number one, I think Ravens are like, we'll see where I put them in my power rankings this week. But what do you think of Washington? Are they not as good as you thought they were, or your opinion hasn't changed? They're still, a really good team.
No, my opinion hasn't changed on them. I think they're a pretty decent team. Last week was a test for them. I actually thought that Washington was going to go in there and beat them the way they were playing. But I thought it was a big test for them. Derrick Henry's just an absolute stud. Every single time they're down at the goal line, the guy runs it in. He's unstoppable. The Ravens are kind of a mystery team because some weeks they look like an unstoppable force, and some weeks they look like they lost their identity a little bit. So it's tough to say what that loss brings to the Washington Commanders at this point in the season. But I actually think you need to go through some growing pains as a young team and realize that, a 7-point defeat in Baltimore against the two-time MVP of the league is not a bad thing. And I know I shouldn't be talking this highly of the Commanders because they're in my division, but right now, as it stands, the Commanders are the best team in the NFC East. So,
yeah, I mean, you can't really argue that at this point. And of course, they've already won 4 games. They play the Panthers this week. So, 5 wins. You're going to be in it for a while. Unless you have a complete collapse and somehow this loss carries over to the Panthers, which is very, very unlikely to happen. Yeah. Also, they're getting Brian Robinson back. So, we're going to face them soon in the coming weeks on Thursday Night Football. And this will probably when's the last time we went into a game where Washington was actually good? We always play them tight.
Well, for us, it's every year when they face us.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
I guess the last time would probably be that Kirk Cousins season when he beat Chip Kelly in that Saturday game.
Yeah, they were an 8-8 football team.
Yeah, I know. So nothing to write home about. So this is the best Washington start, I don't even know, that I can remember, to be honest.
Easily.
So that's a wrap around the NFCs. We already talked about the Giants. Clearly, we're still the second best team right now, but with so much work to do. And I don't know, talk about the Eagles. We don't know what to expect from them week to week at this. Of course, it helps to have an easier schedule. We are going to play the Bengals, which I think we both think that's probably going to be a loss just because of the history. And Joe Burrow is back to being Joe Burrow. And then you have the Jags, who are in a complete downfall, unfortunately, with Doug Peterson. Obviously, we love Dougie P. So the schedule sets up pretty nice for us. But again, you barely beat the Browns. So it's – Nick, it's so funny because I was texting Kyle and I said, what if I predicted it to be a tie?
Yeah,
right? Against the Bengals. So, that was funny. Let's get into the trade talk because this was a noteworthy week. A lot of, we're going to talk about the Nick Sirianni thing and Jerry Jones. So the NFL news just keeps pouring in. We have Tay to the Jets. Davante Adams was finally traded from the Raiders, reuniting with Aaron Rodgers after the Jets suffered that 3-point loss to the Bills. And obviously that was a crazy game with the win and the missed field goal kicks. And Aaron Rodgers still doesn't look like his old self, but now having Davante Adams there paired with Wilson, and your head coach is gone, who's the mystery still if they got along or liked each other. What is that going to turn Aaron? I'm not going to say it's going to turn their season around. They're going to make the playoffs, but will that make Aaron Rodgers look and his stat line be a lot better?
So this reminds me of when Randy Moss got traded from the Oakland Raiders to the New England Patriots in 2006. Randy Moss looked like he was on the downturn of his career. He was in his early 30s at the time. He wasn't being used properly, and everyone thought he was done. Fast forward to not even a year later, he's breaking NFL records with Tom Brady in passing touchdowns receiving-wise. So I can see the same exact thing with Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, even though Aaron Rodgers is obviously older. But with Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Davante Adams, and Lazard, one of his favorite targets, if that offensive line does its job, they are an unstoppable force.
Which we know their O-line isn't good, but
Yeah, I mean, you went from from Mike Williams to Devonta Adams. And you barely lost that game to the Bills. So it's like I think right now the front runners in the East are the Jets.
and
I
isn't it
really do.
funny that Randy Moss went to the Raiders too, and you basically go there to die, right?
Yeah.
Like Davante Adams. Because Davante Adams, you can make an argument he was the best receiver in all of football for a few years there. And obviously they had a great connection since day one, Rodgers and him and Tay in Green Bay. So yeah, I mean, it was the perfect situation for him to go to. Of course, he didn't go to Dallas, which would that have helped them? Yes, but I mean, we're happy he didn't. We're happy that he didn't fucking go there.
Yeah.
Also, Amari Cooper to the Bills, which is funny
Huge.
that both these teams played Monday night. They both traded for a wide receiver. Of course, in my opinion, Tay is better than Amari Cooper, but this is also going to help the Bills.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, Amari Cooper is the number one on that team immediately. It's Amari Cooper, Shakir, and probably Coleman as the number 3 right now. And then you have James Cook in the backfield with Ty Johnson.
Yeah, they needed someone with with Stephon Diggs not being there right
now.
Yeah,
and Josh, and he's not a cancer either. Amari Cooper fits well with any team. So it's like you look at it like that, and
I'll take Stephon Diggs. Fucking trade him.
Nah, I wouldn't. I'm not taking him. You have Kincaid, and Josh Allen's one of the most dynamically athletic players I've ever seen in my life. So, you can't expect them to fail either. But right now, I have to give the small edge to the Jets just because Devonta Adams is that good with Rodgers.
Yeah, let's talk about Josh Allen for a second because, again, him doing it with not great talent. I mean, if you want to be generous, give the talent group a B as far as the offensive weapons. I would probably even go like C+ overall. Yeah. Stephon Diggs obviously is an A player to me. But again, like you said, he's an extraordinary athlete, leader. He takes over games. When he made that run to secure the victory, pretty awesome for them, and he just looked like a beast.
Not only that won me fantasy. What happened is I was winning by 28 points. Yeah, I was winning by 28 points, and I had the Jets defense that really fucked things up. And I had Allen. I was going against Allen Lazard, and Mike Williams. He got 0 points, and I was going against Allen Lazard, and Allen Lazard caught that Hail Mary and a couple of other catches. He got like 25 points, so I was like sweating bullets at the end of the game. And all of a sudden, Mike Williams drops it, which actually helped me. If he caught that ball, I'm thinking the way my luck's going that he's going to throw the ball to Lazard in the end zone. So that actually helped me out in a way. So I'm happy for that. But man, that was crazy. And I don't want that to happen again.
So my point that I was going to follow up with that, I think, at least for me, you kind of have to compare him to Patrick Mahomes because he's that good. And we see Patrick Mahomes win with 0 talent most of the time now. So that's the only thing where it's like I put Patrick Mahomes over him because Patrick Mahomes can do that. But look, even like Peyton Manning, like we'll go back a little bit with Marvin Harrison and all the freaking players that he had. There's only, and obviously Tom Brady turned anyone into a great player. There's usually only one quarterback in a generation that can do that. So it shouldn't be a slight against Josh Allen. But that's why they traded for Amari Cooper because like every single quarterback besides the best 2 of all time, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, you need weapons.
Correct.
So we'll see how that goes. Is this I forget who we, in the offseason, I don't even know if we predicted like a Super Bowl or who's going to win the AFC. But at this point, the AFC is not as good as the NFC. A couple of teams are down. But is this finally the Bills' year to make it to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, right now, like answering what you said earlier, I predicted the Kansas City Chiefs to three-peat. So right now, for them to overtake them, the Kansas City players would have to stay on injured reserve, which means Pacheco, Rice, and the players that they acquired would have to absolutely do nothing, which means if Mike Williams goes to the Chiefs, he would have to play like he's playing on the Jets for them to not have a shot, and that's how the Bills get to the Super Bowl. But for right now, I'm going to stick with the Chiefs as the team that gets to the Super Bowl again.
The only thing with the Bills, of course, they had that bad loss to the Texans,
Mm.
but I can't really see the Texans being there just because of the experience. So again, I think the favorites are obviously the Chiefs, Ravens, and the Bills. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to do this, guys, but I'm going to cancel out the Ravens right now.
They won this week.
I don't like how Lamar Jackson plays in the playoffs. I never have. I never will. I don't think he's a winner.
He's only a two-time MVP, which is
that's fine, great. But like he's never been to a Super Bowl. He lost horribly to the Kansas City Chiefs last year in the NFC. The AFC
that was really disappointing, that game.
Yeah, and he's not a winner. So I mean, I'm going to cancel out the Ravens until they prove me otherwise. So I'm going to put it for the Bills and the Chiefs this year. I think that'll be the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, and we know they've had some great playoff games, such as that AFC Championship game a few years ago in overtime. And again, the only team that's been able to beat the Chiefs is the Bengals. Yeah. Can they get there? They're really buried with that 2-4 record now. It's going to be hard for them to win that division. And I mean, it doesn't even really matter because there's only one bye now. So as long as you get in, of course, you'd rather have a home playoff game the first round than not. Now I will disagree. I don't know. I'm very impressed by the Ravens. I think they're a great football team. They would obviously need to get that monkey off their back, but also they should have beat the Chiefs week 1.
Right.
You know, that game that was again probably still the best game of the year.
Mm.
So if they can play like that again, and obviously they probably planned their entire offseason around that game because it was their first game. But that's their last beast to slay. So they should be putting all their resources into how to beat the Chiefs. And again, how to beat them on the biggest stage.
Mm.
Will they do it? Will they get there? I think that they will, just because they do have Derrick Henry now. And especially it's going to pay off in December and the playoffs. And I think that they will beat the Bills at some point. But again, it's anyone's good as – you know, I mean, I think if that game were to happen right now, the Chiefs would probably be a 1-point favorite. Do you agree?
Probably. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's neck and neck, but you would have to give the slight edge to the Chiefs just due to, you know, recent history last year.
Correct.
All right, guys, we are moving right. All right. So we talked about those trades. Will the Eagles get in on this trade action? The trade deadline is November 5th. Will they be buyers? Will they somehow be sellers? Or will they just do nothing?
I think they're going to be buyers. I think they're going to go after Max Crosby on the Raiders, put together a package, and get him over here. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, so I just pulled up NFL.com 7 players who could be available on the trade block. A lot of wide receivers here. I'm surprised to see Cooper Kupp on here, but honestly, the Rams are kind of having another down season. And again, these wide receivers like Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper, I don't want to say you only have so many years, but like especially that position, you're wasting your talent when you don't have a good team or a good quarterback. Now we know Matthew Stafford is good, but not in Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper's case.
Yeah.
And I kind of go back on what I said. Yeah, I would love Stephon Diggs, but we don't need a fucking wide receiver. We have 2 great ones, and like we just need to get them the ball. Like it doesn't even matter if we had obviously you had more talent, but we just need to we have the talent to do it. Just fucking do it.
Right.
What's the biggest position of need right now? You
For
said Max Crosby, but I don't think he's going to be on the trade block. Possibly. But
you're gonna think I'm nuts, but I think it's offensive line help. Like I really think so. I mean, if you could go get a tackle out there for cheap, for depth, I would do that because we are really thin at the offensive line position right now.
Especially if someone goes down, like you said, Fred Johnson is our number 1 backup, which I'm like a fan of him, but not long term. He played great against the Saints, but definitely not against Tampa, who had that elite defensive line. But teams unfortunately don't trade good tackles. They don't grow on trees. Like I said, I feel like there's always a wide receiver available because, they're kind of like that diva and like teams are willing to part with them. For me, the biggest need is still probably linebacker or no, it's defensive end. Like, how could it not be? Josh Sweat finally got a sack last week. Fucking Bryce Huff had a half a sack.
There you go.
Were you shocked? Were you shocked?
Yeah, because he looks like a middle schooler out there. He looks like a boy to men. Like he
must have fell backwards into that half sack, right?
Yeah, literally did a 360 spin into that sack, and it wasn't because of him. It's because someone pushed him 3 times.
So that's the biggest need for me. If they somehow got Hogby, that would literally just put like a burst of energy, like a fucking lightning rod, not in just to the defense, but the whole team. Because not of how good of a player he is, but his personality is very likable, especially for this city of Philly. And again, who the fuck would not be happy getting away from the Raiders? Now, the only good thing for the Raiders is I'm sure people love living there now that they're in Vegas. We both love Vegas a lot. Again, absolutely. I only went with you once, and I fucking loved that trip.
Yeah, you had a paradise trip.
But besides that, who wants to be on the Raiders right now? Seriously.
Yeah. Honestly, other than being in Vegas and like pulling a Henry Ruggs, rest in peace to that lady. I think that nobody wants to be in Vegas right now because other than, playing shitty football and losing all your money, why would you want to be in Vegas?
Exactly. Or you're there just for the big contract like Devontae Adams and Crosby is now. Of course, he was a homegrown drafted player, so that's a little bit different than being a free agent and brought in.
Yep.
Now, I'm trying to see who else is realistic. And again, anyone's probably available for the right price unless they're, your all-time franchise defensive end or player. I don't know. Anyone else that you can think of that would really help this team right now?
Right now, like I would have to go with what Nick said. I would go with edge. You just find anybody, and because our pressure has just been abysmal. It's been awful. Like our best player is Brandon Graham, and he's fucking old as fuck. So you really have to assess what you need and just go for it, man. Just let Howie do his job, I guess.
Can you believe Jason Peters got signed to the Seahawks a couple weeks ago, and he is still playing at 41?
The thing with him is, and I feel bad
we could trade for him. We should have brought him in for the tackle.
I feel bad for JP, though, because the only reason why he's playing right now at the age of 42 is because he has a big gambling problem. So, like, he has to play.
I think that's it. I feel like he just –
No, he has a big gambling problem. It's well noted. He'd be at the craps table in Harrah's shooting dice at like $10,000 a roll. So it's crazy.
Now, the only other thing that I would really like, we know we can't do it, but is Hassan Reddick. And do you think that they should consider changing that rule about, you can't trade for him again for 2 years?
It wouldn't really affect what we're doing right now. So, it's a moot point. But at
so you wouldn't want Hassan Reddick back?
Oh, I would love Hassan Reddick back. Are you fucking crazy? I told you in March, I was like, we can't lose this guy. He's like the captain on the defense. He makes everything go. And
now we both thought that was the dumbest thing ever. That's crazy. Stupid. But like you said, wait, what were you saying before that? Like just because we can't do it, it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. It's a moot point. I don't even want to think about it because it just.
Well, would you like to see the NFL change that rule?
Doesn't matter because honestly, I actually think it's a fair rule in a way, just because teams they could collude a little bit, and I understand the rule, but maybe make it a year so it doesn't affect the Super Bowl chances.
So I actually am reading an article right now that the Eagles are a possible suitor for Jaguars offensive lineman Walker Little, and I'm going to be honest, I have no idea who that is.
Never heard of Walker Little? Wow.
Do you know who that is?
Absolutely not.
You said I've never heard of him?
No, I was joking. But yeah, I mean, whatever.
I don't know if you just froze up or not.
I mean, whatever.
I think you just froze for a second there.
Oh, I did. All right, sweet.
Yeah. You said I can't believe I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Is he like a Pro Bowler or something?
I was
like,
joking. No one knows who he is.
Oh, I'm fucking dead. Yeah, he was a second round pick in 2021. I guess he's a starter. But there you go. I mean, offensive tackle help. But that's the only. And don't you think we usually hear about trades with the Eagles and like this shit gets out if they're actually interested in someone?
Yep. Yeah, all the time. And I mean, even if it's fake and you say you're going to bring Keenan Allen to help fix them out, and it doesn't mean it's true, you always like to hear buzz and rumors in the rumor mill. It's always fun.
Yeah, now there's some other article that should we have held on to the fucking linebacker that we just cut? So relevant, Devin White, possibly, but they're saying that we could trade away like Isaiah Rodgers, which I don't think that they will, or Milton Williams.
No, Devin White was so shot that we didn't even want to play him because we thought we were going to hurt him. That's just my opinion, and getting Devin White was a travesty.
Now, two interesting names. Trayvon Walker from Jacksonville.
Okay.
And possibly, which would be freaking insane, because this guy is like a hot potato, Jadeveon Clowney from Carolina.
I think he's a little bit past his good
They had
years.
the opportunity to sign Clowney, but is that just like reference?
I think he's a little bit past his good years of playing NFL football, but he's better than what we have right now, so I say fuck it.
Yeah, I would trade for him too. Now, what would you give? I mean, he can't be worth like maybe a 5th round pick at the most.
I'd give him a 6th rounder. 6th rounder.
Yeah. No, I would agree. We got Brent in the comments. At least whatever happens this season, we have Saquon for 2 years. But yeah, if we don't fucking use him, like, who cares, right? So we have 2 years to build. But, like, we don't have to rebuild the offensive line. Like, you still have Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson for at least a couple more seasons, Jordan Mailata, the guard position, and then you're talking about center. But it's very hard to have an elite offensive line at all times. We're used to that because we've had that for, like, the past 12 seasons.
Yeah.
Again, I still think you got to put resources into the defense. And then, honestly, we're going to need tight end because Goddard is just getting hurt way too much now. Grant Calcaterra had some good catches, but we know he's not that good. He'll be shut down. He's not going to have a catch this week. I'd be shut up. Even though he's our starting tight end. One catch. I mean, did you see he had the longest catch and run of his career?
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Browns, but.
And then that third wide receiver position, which actually finally Jalen Hurts did try and throw to Doxson in the end zone. I don't know if you remember that play. So maybe there's trying to build some camaraderie there. But yeah, it's weird because this team doesn't have that many holes. You could go back to Jordan Davis and of course Nolan Smith. But even so, again, I feel like people need to say it's not the talent. Even I would say that last year. This team, again, people were saying it's one of the most talented rosters in the league before the season. This is purely on coaching at this point. Would you agree?
Yep.
And just motivation, the head coach, getting everyone to play together as a team. So, I mean, I think Howie did his job. The only bust, which I wouldn't say Devin White, and of course Saquon makes up for every bust he has from this offseason, would be Bryce Huff, the Hassan Reddick thing.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Huff got one of the worst contracts I've ever seen in my life. So
now, will Hassan Reddick trading for Devontae Adams? Actually, I don't know if it'll hurt or help because they're taking on Adams' contract now. But is that any motivation for him to come back, or it's just so far gone at this point?
Nah, it's far gone at this point because at this point you don't want to have anything to do with the GM or even the head coach. Well, the last head coach, because you're just ready to move on. It's borderline disrespectful to him. Like in his head, it's almost like when James Harden, they said, "Could you ever work out something with Daryl Morey?" And he said no because he's a liar. Like it's a disrespectful thing. So he's ready to move on, and the Jets are going to have to get King's ransom for him, or else they're not going to trade him, and he's just going to leave in free agency and get a deal somewhere else.
I think he probably will be traded. But yeah, like you said, it's shady on the Jets' part because there's no way they didn't know that he wanted a new contract.
Yeah,
You agreed to trade for him. So like
they
what the fuck do you expect?
they were banking on him going to the Jets in a better position since the Eagles sank last year. That's what they were banking on, and it just wasn't the case.
You mean you're saying that he would be grateful to be there?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's about the money for him. And it always has because he was on Arizona. They didn't want to pay him. Carolina, they didn't want to pay him. And then ultimately we did sign him to that 3-year deal, but then we didn't want to re-up and give him a new contract. So clearly it is about the money as it should be for every player. But yeah, just shame on the Jets. And they would be I mean, he would help that fucking team. Now we know they already have a good defense, but if he was there, they would be a better team. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Because the pass rush would be there. They already have decent corners with Reed and Sauce Gardner. And I think they would be dynamic, but he doesn't want to be there, and that's that.
Yeah. I don't even get it. Like we said, it's too far gone now. I know they let him like request a trade or seek a trade, but fucking work something out. Like give him some type of money where he's happy. I mean, even if it's a 2-year deal and not whatever he wants 4 or 5-year deal, like unless you literally have no cap space, which we know that's not true because they just traded for Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you not work something out with a player? It's one of the worst situations I've seen in a long time.
It's an ego drive from both sides. And, rich people that are richer than others always usually win because they have the power.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. All right, we're going to move on to our top 5 power rankings for this week. And of course, Kyle does keep track of these. So do you want to first run down our top 5 from last week that we both had?
Okay, guys. So the top 5 power rankings from last week. Let's go with it right now. I'm going to start with me because, I always go first. So number 5 in my power rankings last week, we had Houston Texans, which, they look pretty well. They look pretty decent right now. Number 4, Kansas City. They've been underwhelming to me, but they're still undefeated. So there's that. 3 is the Niners. I think they're going to be a lot better down the road. 2, Detroit, and number 1, the Vikings. Scotty, his power rankings last week were the Texans at number 5, the Lions at number 4, the Vikings at number 3, the Ravens at number 2, and the Chiefs at number 1. So I want to see Scotty's number 5 to begin this week. Last week it was Texans. Does anything change there?
I would have to say no, just because they won their game. So I'm not going to take a team out of the top 5 that won. And I don't think that anyone made a statement that was super, super impressive. Now I know there was good wins. The Bears are all of a sudden 4-2. And I don't know if you've seen that NFC North, but every team is the Packers are 4-2 now. So that's kind of crazy that the worst record in the North is 4-2. Falcons, I don't know did they play? Can't remember. Tampa had a pretty impressive game with Baker Mayfield against the Saints. And then, so I was thinking of one other team that did well. I guess you could say the Packers winning again.
Tampa Bay looked really good.
Yeah, so it's still going to be Texans at 5 for me this week.
Number 5 for me, believe it or not, is actually going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have earned the right with how they're just blowing teams out, how Baker Mayfield is looking like the best fantasy quarterback in all of football right now. He's getting 30 points every single week. They have Godwin, they have Mike Evans, they have this new Sean Tucker guy who came out of absolutely nowhere and looks like an absolute stud. They have Rashad White. They have that other guy, what's his name? The backup to
Yeah,
Rashad.
I just tried to pick him up. I
Yeah,
don't even remember.
Buckley. And they have
Yeah.
so much talent. They're very well coached. They're well put together. So the Buccaneers take the Texans spot at number 5 in this week's power rankings.
Sean Tucker, which I did not get him. Cool.
I didn't get him either. I bid 110 fab on him, and Russo got him for 120.
That's a little. I think that's a lot, but I mean,
No, dude, he's good. He's fucking good, man.
We have the money, so you think he's going to be the new number 1 there?
He could be. I mean, Rachaad White looks suspect at best. I think Sean Tucker, if he plays like he did last week, he's going to take it over.
I'll definitely be running back by committee, I think. But yeah, he went off, and oh my god, how many the Bucs have scored so many fucking points for now 3 straight weeks. Obviously, they went 2-1. They could have won that Atlanta game. It came down to overtime.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising, especially with Todd Bowles being their coach, and the defense obviously has not been good. They've giving up points.
They killed us. They killed New Orleans, and they beat Detroit.
Yeah,
out on the road.
Yeah, that looks really impressive now, and they held Detroit to 16 points. I think they won that game 20-16.
Yep. So they're number 5 in my power rankings.
Now, just a little bit spoiler: did you move the Texans out, or are they up?
Texans are out of my power rankings this week.
Okay, even though they won 41-21, they only beat the Patriots. But
correct.
Number 4. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Number 4 for Scotty's power rankings is the Lions from last week. Does anything change there?
Yeah, it does. Who did I? I'm moving the Vikings down. I kind of want to move the Vikings out, but I can't. They're still undefeated. The Vikings were on a bye week, but I'll put the Vikings at 4. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't think that this team is in it for the long run. I feel like you're a little bit down on them, even though they didn't play last week.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see in your rankings, because I know you just said it's going to be San Francisco and Detroit, you think, in the final 2 at some point in the championship game. But so yeah, I have the Vikings at 4.
Number 4 for me last week was Kansas City. I know they didn't play last week, but they're actually going to jump up. Spoiler alert, they're going to jump up to number 3. I'm going to slide the Niners down to 4, even though they had that good showing in Seattle this week. George Kittle's an absolute monster. But right now, I'm going to put the Niners at 4 just because Kansas City is still undefeated, and they're obviously going to be my 3rd team. So
now,
yeah.
Now, the next 3 teams, I know it's the Chiefs, Ravens, and Lions. They're all staying, and this is so hard to rank them right now. I think they are the 3 best teams kind of by far in the league. Besides, yeah, they are. So I know who did I have at 3? The Lions?
Let me see. You at 3, you had the Vikings.
Where did I have the Lions and Ravens?
Lions and Ravens, you had 1, 2.
No, I had the Chiefs at 1.
Lions and Ravens? Oh, you had Lions at 4, and then you had the Ravens at 2.
Okay, I am going to – all right, yeah, I'm moving, obviously, the Lions to 3.
Okay.
Blowing out Dallas, just becoming – really making a statement win that this is, again, top 3 team in the league, the best team in the NFC right now.
Yep.
They're scary. Now, losing Aiden Hutchinson is a big loss. It really, really is. That dude is such a young player. He's such a beast. He's a stud. But I mean, we got to talk about Jared Goff a little bit and his whole career journey. And now he's playing like literally he could be the MVP right now. Seriously. Literally, this team doesn't punt in games. He didn't have an incompletion against Seattle. Like unheard of things, breaking records.
Yep.
They're scary, but they have not proven it. They've proven it in the playoffs, but they didn't make the Super Bowl yet. And I just have confidence in the next 2 teams.
Yeah. So number 3, you had it as what again?
My number 3 this week is the Lions.
Gotcha. So you're bumping them up from 4, and number 4 was I'm sorry. I was looking at something and I just completely slipped. 4 was what?
All right. So 5 was Texans. 4 was Vikings.
Gotcha. Cool. So you slipped them down. You flip flopped them pretty much.
Mm-hmm. And they'll play this week, which we'll get into next, which is a big game.
And number 3 for me is obviously KC, and number 2 for Scotty is the Ravens from last week.
And the Ravens will stay. Like we talked about them earlier. I'm high on them. They beat a good Washington team. And I think they're gonna keep winning.
Okay. And obviously your number 1 is the Chiefs. My number 2 is going to stay the same. It's going to be Detroit. Even though they just lost Aiden Hutchinson, it's a big loss, it's a huge loss, but they just killed Dallas. They absolutely destroyed them. And number 1, I think the most complete team in the league right now is the Minnesota Vikings. So that's
wow. You really, yeah. I think they came back down to earth. Obviously, they were playing in London against Aaron Rodgers, and they picked off Rodgers twice. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're gonna see, because we're about to pick our games next. They play the Lions, so that'll decide your number 1 next week, obviously.
So just recapping it, Scotty's Week 7 power rankings: Texans at 5, Vikings at 4, Lions at 3, Ravens at 2, Chiefs at 1. I had the Bucks at 5, new top 5 team. Niners at 4, sliding down. KC at 3, sliding up. Detroit at 2, and Vikings 1.
Now, please tell me you have the Ravens at 6 at least.
I got the Ravens at like 7.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to finally earn your respect and get into that top 5. Like for 6 and 7 for me, I think it would have to be probably Bills and then Tampa Bay.
If I truly believe
I can't have the 49ers. Sorry, go ahead.
If I truly believe that the Ravens can win the Super Bowl and like win in the playoffs, then they'll go in my top 5. But I'm sick of ranking them high in the regular season and then just going to shit in the playoffs.
So you think that Tampa can win the Super Bowl?
Absolutely, I do. Right now, I do. They're blowing teams out. They look very balanced on both sides of the ball. And they play in warm weather. They play in domes. I have them absolutely as a top 5 team in the league, and they can win the Super Bowl this year. Yes.
Well, guess who plays on Monday night? And our Ravens Bucks. That'll be a great game.
I think the Bucks are going to beat the Ravens this week.
All right. Well, let's get into our picks for this week. Mm-hmm. Let me get everything pulled up. We're going to give a little bit of a recap because last week was interesting. Interesting for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest game that we disagreed on was Baltimore and Washington. Anything else really of note? Buffalo went over the Jets. We disagreed there. Mm-hmm. And then did the Titans and Chargers, pretty much 2 irrelevant teams, but I know we had that one. Mm-hmm. I know the Chargers played the Broncos and the Chargers won. Who the fuck did Tennessee play? Not that who even cares who they played, but the Colts. I thought they would win the Colts. Yeah. You think Indy? I will have an update on these in a moment.
Hey guys. I'm gonna have to use the restroom real quick. Scotty will tell you the lines on the next game. I'll be back in like 30 seconds.
So yeah, we're just gonna run through and review our picks last week real quick. I had we actually, what the heck? Sorry. I had the Jags winning in London. Obviously, I was wrong there. Kyle had the Bears. Kyle took Washington over Baltimore. I had Baltimore. We both picked Green Bay, and Green Bay won. Houston obviously killed New England. We were both right there. Both had Tampa beating the Saints. I took the Titans. Kyle took the Colts. Colts got the win by 3. We both had the Chargers over the Broncos. We both had Atlanta over Carolina, obviously. Both had Detroit over Dallas. Both had Cincy. And then we disagreed in the Monday night game where Buffalo defeated New York. And then obviously we talked about those 2 teams' trades and how they both added pretty good wide receivers. So, Kyle, I just went through how we did last week. It was pretty even. Now, the only thing for our locks of the week, Kyle finally got off the schneid, and Cincinnati won.
Yep.
And I picked Atlanta, so I add to my lock of the week record. And obviously, we both picked the Eagles, and we won there. So both of us had a pretty good week last week.
Yes, we did.
And now we are going to finally move on to end our show how we always end it, and that is with the week 7 picks. So give me just one moment, and we can get these picks on the road. Kyle, I'll let you start off. We're back in London. Or no, I'm sorry. We're starting with the Thursday night game because we've been doing the podcast later. We usually miss it. It's Broncos at Saints. What's the line for this game?
It's
coming off. Sorry.
It's -3 Denver on the road.
Both of these teams coming off a loss, like you said. This is at the Caesar Superdome, whatever it's called. Who do you got in Saints?
I'm gonna have to go with the Broncos. I mean, I love Alvin Kamara, but right now with Spencer Rattler, I just don't think he's an NFL quarterback. Sean Payton's going back to the Superdome. You know, he's going to be emotional. He's going to have a game plan ready to go. Bo Nix isn't as bad as I thought he'd be. They have Cortland Sutton. They have decent running backs, and I think they're going to get the job done because I don't think the Saints, other than Alvin Kamara, are going to move the ball against this team at all because the Broncos defense is actually they've been spectacular to start the season. They shut down Baker Mayfield. You know, they're just going to be ready to play. So I got the Broncos.
It's hard to pick against the Broncos, but all of a sudden, the Saints are on a 4-game losing streak after starting 2-0, which no one saw the 2-0 start coming, and I don't think anyone saw the 0-4 streak coming. So are the Saints really going to lose 5 games in a row? That would just be terrible for them, and their season would be dead. So just for that reason, I am actually going to pick the Saints to win there.
All right.
And Kyle's going with Denver. Next game, we're back in London for a doozy. I don't know who the fuck's going to wake up at 9:30 to watch this game. And I mean, there's no one even in fantasy who you would have on these teams.
I'll be golfing, so that's a plus.
Unless you want to bet on this game. Patriots.
You're a degenerate if you do because both these teams are 1-5.
Yeah. Patriots, Jags. Who do you got?
Oh, God. The Jaguars. I don't even want to, run it down. I just think the Jaguars with the -6 spread tells you everything you need to know. You know, the Jaguars, they have more talent. Drake May, I think, is going to be a really good quarterback in this league. The Patriots are just butt-ass right now, so I got to take Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely have to agree. I'm just going to present these on here real quick. There we go. Do you think Doug Peterson's fired if he doesn't win this game?
Not this game, but he'll probably be fired mid-season.
And if you just want to share I just changed it.
All right, I'll share it right now. There we go.
Cool. Next game. Sorry, what's up? You're good?
No, I didn't say anything.
Of course, it just refreshed for some reason. The next game is Seahawks-Falcons, which is kind of a sneaky good game. I think I believe so. Yeah. Falcons, they're looking pretty good. They blew out Carolina. They got a great win over the Bucks, who, you're pretty high on, and there's no denying that the Bucks are good this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's at Atlanta. I think that Are you also taking the Falcons?
Yeah, I lost you there for 5 seconds, but I'm going to take the Falcons, yeah.
Titans at Bills. This could be a little bit of a new Amari Cooper show-off game, possibly, if he learns the playbook that quick, which probably will. Buffalo. Nothing to say there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go Buffalo. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, Tennessee, they need a total rebuild. And honestly, at this point, they probably should. I mean, unless this is probably just part of their process. That's how they're selling it. But, I mean, the decision to fire Mike Vrabel looks pretty bad right now for them. But, again, who cares about the Titans?
What do you feel about Will Levis?
Overrated. He showed some good signs last year. But, clearly, he makes mistakes. But this team doesn't have a lot of talent. They traded away A.J. Brown. The morale is probably so low on this team.
Mm-hmm.
They probably Mike Vrabel was such a likable coach, and they fired him. So I think there's just a lot of issues there.
Mm-hmm.
Bengals, Browns, Bengals.
Yep, agree.
Another doozy. The Dolphins, another team that's so irrelevant, not talked about since Tua went out. Colts won last week, so it's just at the Colts. Yeah, the Dolphins are they're just not irrelevant, right? They're not irrelevant. They're not relevant right now. So yeah, I'm taking the Colts.
So for me, this is one of those games where I feel like the Finns will play up a level just because they know Tua's coming back next week. So they want to stay in the race because right before the bye, they beat the Patriots in New England. They want to stay in the race of the weakest division in all of sports in the AFC East. So I think this week the Dolphins pull the upset.
Wow. All right, I like your points. Also, the Colts just aren't that good, right?
No, they're not.
The game of the week, I mean, there's two of them, in my opinion. And that is the Lions at the Vikings, two heavyweights, your two top teams in the entire league. Vikings coming off a bye week, Lions obviously coming off that great win. And the Lions are just clearly better to me. You know, who would have thought Jared Goff and Sam Darnold, both former number one overall picks, so it shouldn't be that surprising. But they're battling, you know, for the best team in the NFC right now. And give me the Lions.
And this is where the Vikings make their stamp on the NFL. The Vikings will remain undefeated. Aiden Hutchinson was such a big loss for them against this team. They're just going to slice and dice through that defense this week. And Justin Jefferson is going to have 40 fantasy points this week. So give me the Vikings. They're going to blow out the Lions this week, and they're going to remain undefeated.
Now, if Aiden Hutchinson was playing, would that change your pick at all or no?
No, it wouldn't change my pick, but it would be a closer game.
Gotcha. Like I said, I'm taking Detroit, and I can't wait to watch that game at 1 o'clock. Definitely the best 1 o'clock game by far. And then, of course, our game, we're going to officially pick it. Eagles at Giants. No surprise, I'm picking the Eagles to win. Now the score, because I feel like we haven't been accurate on any of our scores besides the Packers game. We both thought that would be a really close game and high scoring, which it was. But besides then, I think, yeah, we really haven't picked any accurate scores. So what the fuck is the score going to be of this game?
Yeah.
This is the team to blow out and finally get right against. So I'm gonna say Eagles 27, Giants 10.
Nah. The Giants, as much shit as I give them, their defense has been playing very well. They damn near kind of shut down the Bengals last week, honestly. Jamar Chase usually goes off, but he didn't really do all that much last week. I'm going to have to say the Eagles win this game in a very fucking sloppy game. 24-17.
Okay, so like pretty much similar to last week. But
yeah,
I have faith, and of course it's optimism, but like if not now, then when? You're going to wait till the Jaguars on Sunday Night Football? Hell, that game should be flexed out at this point. If Doug Peterson is not the coach, that game has to be flexed out of there.
Oh, honestly, if he wasn't the coach, if he gets fired after this game, I think it does get flexed out because there's no reason, you know?
Yeah, but he's supposed to be inducted or no? That's LaShawn McCoy that night.
Yeah,
so I don't even know. That would kind of suck for Shady to not get that moment on that stage, but that's irrelevant.
they'll show the full statue again. Remember good times.
Mm-hmm. Another bad game. Raiders at Rams. Will the Rams be 1-5? I say no. Of course, these teams are so close to each other with Vegas and LA. And it used to be closer with the Raiders being in Oakland. Irrelevant game, but just give me the Rams.
My boy Cooper Kupp is coming back this week. Give me the Rams.
Panthers, Washington again. Washington should blow this team out. I mean, is there a trap game factor here? A tiny bit. But, and, are they going to carry over that first loss since week 1 into this? The Panthers are so bad. The Andy Dalton, whatever, is over. Give me Washington.
You know what? Call me crazy, but this is my trap game of the week. Give me the Panthers.
Wow. All right, explain why. Because you're so high.
All right, so the reason being is because I just found out today that Jonathan Brooks may play in this game. He's their rookie running back. So they're going to want to start him off on a good foot. Plus, Andy Dalton, he knows how to run a system very well. They don't have the worst receivers in the world. Xavier Legette's actually touted as one of the best rookie receivers out there if he gets his feet going. And I just think they're tired of getting stomped on. And the Commanders last week, they had an emotional defeat. They come home, look for an easy win. And we all know in the NFL, when you're looking for something easy, it usually doesn't happen. So I feel the Panthers take advantage of this one and win in a trap game with a score of 21-17.
I mean, as an Eagles fan, we would love to see that happen, have Washington lose. I don't see it, and I also think I already picked the Carolina trap game when they beat the Raiders. I think they beat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't see it. And also, why is this game later in the day? And both these teams are on the East Coast, and they both suck. So I don't know why this game's at 4:05. But moving on to the best 4:00 game. Chiefs at 49ers. Now, both of these teams have just been, I mean, obviously you can't call the Chiefs inconsistent being 5-0, but not how they were in the Super Bowl. And it's a Super Bowl rematch, but it doesn't really have that feel right now. Basically because the 49ers are 3-3. Of course, they beat the Seahawks last week, and they're coming off a lot of rest.
Right.
This game is in San Francisco. Honestly, give me the 49ers. Because I think it's time for the Chiefs to lose a game. They've been riddled with injuries. The 49ers, when are they getting Christian McCaffrey back?
Never.
What?
Never.
No, for real. I'm curious to see if you agree with me.
Yeah, I think San Fran's going to win this game, but not because of the reasons Scotty's thinking. I just think it's the regular season, and it doesn't really matter all that much. The Chiefs are 5-0. And when pressure isn't there and the 49ers, they're going to want to prove to the world that they can beat the Chiefs. They're going to not only beat the Chiefs, I think they dismantle the Chiefs this week.
That would be shocking. Next game, it's now a pretty good game, even though the Jets lost. But, with Devontae Adams and the fired head coach element, they're at the Steelers. And somehow we're already back in Pittsburgh. Like 2 weeks later after, that Cowboys game. That's kind of weird that they're going right back there.
Yep.
This has a Jets win written all over it. If they don't win this game with all this momentum of this trade, they're just fucking done. And the Steelers, they somehow won last week again, even with Justin Fields. And is Russell Wilson ever going to play for them? They beat the Raiders though, but they scored 32 points. But, give me the Jets to finally get a much-needed win and see where they can take it from here.
Yeah, give me the Jets as well. I feel like this is a game where Devontae Adams makes his stamp of the season, and that's just what happens. Give me the Jets.
2 games on Monday night. Now, this and the Lions-Vikings, but I'm probably a little bit more excited for this game. Ravens at Bucks. Obviously, being at home for the Bucks. Like I said, this team has just scored a godly amount of points. It's you almost don't believe it that they scored 51 last week against the Saints, and Baker Mayfield is playing this well. It's actually wild. And you got him, Goff, and Sam Darnold, all former number 1 picks, finally living up 5+ years later to that pick. So that's interesting as well. But all that being said, you know how high I am on the Ravens. I think that it's going to be a great game, and I think I'll take Lamar Jackson over Baker Mayfield. I'm taking Derrick Henry over that slate of backs, and I'm taking the Ravens defense over the Bucks. And these teams are built similarly, so this is like must-see TV in my opinion.
You're absolutely nuts. See, here's the thing: I never switch my fantasy quarterbacks when I have Jordan Love. But guess who my backup is? It's Baker Mayfield, and the secondary on.
Oh, did you trade? Oh, did you trade for him?
No, I have him on ESPN League.
Oh, your other league. Okay.
But my backup is Baker Mayfield, and let me tell you something. If you're a fantasy owner and you are not starting Baker Mayfield this year against that putrid secondary of the Baltimore Ravens, there's something wrong there. Baker Mayfield is going to smack this team in the mouth. And it's going to be one of the highest scoring games of the season. I'm going to give a score prediction right now. 41-31 Tampa Bay.
Interesting. Like I said, I can't wait for that game and see who's right. Next game, Chargers at Cardinals. I think this kind of had, if this even is technically a trap game, I just see Arizona kind of winning here at home. I think the Chargers are just so underwhelming, and they were hyped. I mean, I feel like they haven't played. This is like their first nationally televised game. They've been like hidden at that 405 slot, kind of, besides the Chiefs game. And no one outside of LA sees that fucking game. Of course, you can watch it on Red Zone. But yeah, I just think they're a little bit overhyped. And it's like they need to show up and show out. They beat the Broncos 23-16. They're not an elite team. So give me the Cardinals to just win by a field goal here.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I think the Cardinals are going to win. And that pretty much wraps up the two Monday Night Football games that one won't be watching and everyone will be watching. So it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. And they were on at the same time for a good amount of time. All right, just to wrap things up, we're both obviously going with the Birds over the Giants. I don't want to say like there's not a lot of talk about with the Eagles, but we're just waiting for them to fucking, make some noise and like do something exciting that doesn't have to do with the head coach and just play well, win the game. Obviously, this is pretty much a must win, kind of, because like you don't want to lose to the Giants. And it's like a division record, and you should win the game anyway. So let's just hopefully this team shows up and shows out finally. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, and my lock of the week is San Francisco against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, you're so right. Thanks you for reminding me. You're picking San Francisco over Kansas City as your lock?
Yep.
I love going out on a limb there. And I will take as my lock of the week. And I would love to be wrong, but I'm taking my lock of the week. I'm taking Washington over Carolina. Just playing it safe, but maybe I'm trying to, even though I picked Washington to win, trying to do some like reverseness, and hopefully Washington does lose.
Gotcha. But all right, another great edition of Fly Like an Eagle podcast. We're here every single Wednesday, and obviously after the games. This week we will have a post-game reaction, probably around 5:30. Last week I just didn't feel it was really all that necessary. Plus,
the game was fucking boring last week. It was what it is.
It was boring. It actually made me tired, honestly. I was sitting there at Tommy's Tap eating good-ass wings, having good food, and, I was tired. I was exhausted. The team just put me to sleep, and this week will be better because I'm always up for the Giants no matter what. So
now, this is weird to say, but I feel like I was more entertained getting blown out by the Buccaneers than last week, and that's just so fucking weird. Do you agree?
Wait, what'd you say?
I was more entertained getting blown out by the Bucs than winning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was more entertained because at least one team was moving the ball. Like last week, like both teams just looked like shit. It was horrible.
And I don't even know. I just want to see fucking good football from this team because I feel like we need more to talk about. I don't know. We'll talk more off air, but go Birds. It was an awesome show. And like I said, we will see you guys for Eagles Giants post game. Let's get this win and fucking look good doing it.
Yeah, tune back in at 5:30-ish Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. It's going to be a little gap between the game because I have to get home. So that'll happen. But other than that, if you guys don't watch the post game, which we hope you do, come back every single Wednesday at 7:30. We'll be here. And, we'll just provide more content for you guys. And hopefully you guys are enjoying the show up to right now or forever. But with that said, we're out of here. Fly goes fly, go Birds. Hopefully we don't get too angry on Sunday because losing to the Giants would suck, but we're not going to lose. So let's just get out of here with positivity and fuck the Giants. Bye, guys.